Maybe you want to play around with installing OpenSquiggly on Kubernetes versus a virtual machine. And let's say maybe you don't work for a company that gives you access to Kubernetes, or maybe you're unfamiliar with Kubernetes and you want sort of an easy and lightweight way to play around with it. Check out Linode. It gives a way to get Kubernetes up and running that at least it's a little bit easier to understand the expense structure than it is with some of the bigger players like Azure and Amazon. And I think it's a little bit easier to set up and configure. So if you're just looking for something to get your hands dirty with, head over to linode.com and create a Kubernetes cluster. And then I'll show how once you've created the Kubernetes cluster, you can copy the kubeconfig file and put it into your local.kube folder. And then from there, you can use kubectl to access your Linode cluster. All right. So go to the Kubernetes tab, and I've already created one called the Node Kube 1, but let me walk through how I did that. Click on Create Cluster. All right, give it a label. So I'll call this the Node Kube 2, let's say. Pick a region, Dallas, and pick Kubernetes version. I use 1.26. And then from here, you can choose your type of node pool: dedicated, shared, high memory. So Kubernetes is never free, and it's more expensive than just using a single VM. But at least you can understand the pricing structure with Linode. And so what I picked to set up my sample is I picked the dedicated CPU, 4 gigabytes. And it recommends that you have at least 3 nodes. I mean, that's part of the idea of Kubernetes, is that it's this, self-correcting, resilient thing, and can scale and move your containers around and things like that. In order for that all to work, it helps if you have a multi-node system. So Linode recommends that you use at least 3 nodes. So let's say I'm going to pick. So this is going to be $36 a month times 3. That'll be $108 a month. And then in addition to that, you can add your high availability control plane, which you should do in production. But if you're just playing around with OpenSquiggly and you just want a quick way to install it, you don't really need that. And so go ahead and click on that, and then that will add your 3 nodes. Hit Create Cluster, and that will get you started. So I'm not going to do that because I've already created one. So let me go back to the one I've created. All right. And then what I want to show here is once you do this, like, where do you go from here? So notice here in this section, if you click on the info for your cluster, it'll take a minute to provision these things, but after it's all provisioned, you can now either download your kubeconfig.yaml, or you can just hit view and view it in a window and copy the contents to your clipboard. And then what you're going to want to do is go to your local.kube folder and put it in there. I'll show that in my next video. For this video, I just wanted to kind of introduce anyone unfamiliar with Linode to using it and how you can get started with a Kubernetes cluster. Thank you.